How many times have you failed to speak your mind, missed an opportunity for growth, or simply hidden away for fear of not being good enough? Insecurity is like a silent shadow, stalking every step and suffocating courage before it can even blossom. But what if I told you there's an ancient way, tested by some of history's greatest thinkers, capable of banishing this shadow from your mind for good? Today, we'll delve into Stoic wisdom, a philosophy not meant to be just read, but lived, and that can completely transform the way you deal with fear and doubt. Here you'll discover how to achieve unshakable self-confidence, regardless of what those around you think. And best of all, at the end of this video, I'll reveal a practical method in 3 simple steps, so you can not only understand but also apply this change to your life today. If you're tired of living trapped by other people's opinions and want to finally act with clarity, courage and firmness, stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear could be the game changer your mind and your life have been waiting for. Mental insecurity is like a constant echo inside your mind, repeating doubts and questions that drain your energy and erode your confidence. It's that persistent feeling that you're not ready, that you're not enough, or that no matter how hard you try, you'll inevitably fail. Unlike healthy uncertainty, which drives us to seek more knowledge and prepares us to act prudently, insecurity paralyzes us. It doesn't encourage us to improve, but rather convinces us to avoid it. It's like using a distorted lens that transforms small obstacles into insurmountable barriers, exaggerating risks to the point of preventing us from taking the first step. Its roots are deep and, most often, linked to the fear of judgment, the constant worry about what others will think. This fear creates an invisible filter through which every action is analyzed and often discarded before it's even attempted. Another major driver of insecurity is perfectionism, the belief that if something can't be executed with absolute excellence, then it's not worth even starting. This unrealistic demand for perfection not only generates anxiety but also serves as an excuse for not taking action after all. If there's no action, there's no risk of failure. Added to this are past experiences of rejection, failure, or humiliation. Painful moments are etched in the memory as permanent warnings, and any similar situation is automatically associated with fear and self-protection. Thus, the mind, trying to avoid pain, creates barriers that, in practice, impede growth. The most dangerous thing about insecurity is the silent way it creeps in. It doesn't arrive with loud warnings but infiltrates everyday life through subtle actions. Failing to share an idea in a meeting because you think it's not good enough. Avoiding starting conversations with strangers for fear of seeming awkward. Refusing invitations because you think you won't fit in. Procrastinating on an important project because you fear you won't be up to the task. Small decisions like these, repeated day after day, build an invisible cycle of self-sabotage. This sabotage affects not only individual decisions but also relationships. Insecurity can generate distrust, an excessive need for validation, and difficulty establishing healthy boundaries. At work, it prevents you from taking on new challenges. In your personal life, it undermines deep connections because constant self-doubt contaminates the way you present yourself to the world. And worst of all, the more you give into it, the stronger it becomes. Recognizing these signs and understanding that insecurity is often the result of distorted perceptions and not reality is the first and most important step in disarming it. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes a powerful tool, capable of dismantling these mental traps and opening space for a life with more courage, clarity, and action. Stoicism emerged in ancient Greece around the 3rd century BC, founded by Zeno of Citium and later developed by great figures such as Seneca, Epictetus, and the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Unlike a purely theoretical philosophy, Stoicism has always been a life practice. Its teachings aim to prepare individuals to deal with adversity in a rational and balanced way, making them resilient to emotional storms. The Stoics believed that, while we cannot control everything that happens around us, we have complete control over how we react to these circumstances. This idea is the foundation for understanding and combating insecurity. For the Stoics, fear and doubt were not enemies to be destroyed, but signs to be interpreted. Epictetus said, "What disturbs men is not things, but the opinions they hold and form on them." This means that insecurity arises not from the facts themselves, but from the interpretations we give them. Seneca, in turn, warned of the danger of suffering more in our imagination than in reality, experiencing pain and failures in advance that may never happen. This view is extremely relevant, as much of modern insecurity is the result of exaggerated mental scenarios, fueled by comparisons, social media, unrealistic expectations. The Stoics also made a clear distinction between imaginary insecurity and real danger. Real danger is objective, a physical threat, a concrete and immediate risk to one's integrity. Imaginary insecurity, on the other hand, is subjective. It is the fear of making a mistake, of being judged or rejected, even when there is no concrete evidence that this will happen. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reinforced that we must train our minds to differentiate between what is the result of our interpretation and what is fact, as only then can we act with clarity. Another central point is the Stoic concept of focusing only on what is within our control. If we cannot control our thoughts, whether it's the feelings of others, someone's reaction, or the end result of an action, there's no point in investing energy in worrying about them. By redirecting our focus to what we can actually change, attitudes, words, and choices, insecurity loses much of its power in the modern world, where we are constantly bombarded by information and comparisons. Applying this wisdom is like creating a mental shield against unnecessary anxiety and fear. If you identify that your insecurity is imaginary, you can act even with trepidation, knowing that the fear is merely a projection. But if you identify that it's a real danger, you can act prudently, taking practical steps to protect yourself. This distinction, simple in theory, is liberating in practice. This is why Stoicism remains alive today, because it teaches us that the security we seek is not found in external circumstances, but in the internal strength we build by understanding, questioning, and mastering our own thoughts. The cycle of insecurity begins almost imperceptibly with a seemingly harmless negative thought: what if I'm not good enough? Or what if everyone realizes I don't know what I'm doing? These thoughts, when repeated, create an internal narrative that becomes accepted as truth, and this distorted truth shapes behavior, leading to self-sabotage. You stop trying for fear of failure, avoid exposing yourself to avoid judgment, and end up confirming, in practice, the false belief that you're not capable. It's a closed cycle. Thinking generates fear. Fear prevents action. Inaction reinforces insecurity, and it all starts again. Much of this process is fueled by external expectations. We live in a society that often measures value by performance and the approval of others. This constant pressure to meet standards, whether family, social, or professional, undermines self-confidence because it focuses on something beyond our control, the opinions of others. The more we worry about meeting these expectations, the further away we become from our own internal references and the more vulnerable we become to insecurity. Social comparison is another powerful fuel for this cycle. Looking at other people's lives, especially on social media, and measuring our worth based on carefully edited snapshots is a trap. When we compare ourselves, we often choose the worst in ourselves and place it alongside the best in others, creating a chasm that seems impossible to bridge. This habit undermines self-confidence and intensifies feelings of inadequacy. This is where Stoicism offers a practical solution: the concept of internal control. This idea, championed by Epictetus and reinforced by Marcus Aurelius, asserts that there are things that depend on us: our actions, choices, and attitudes, and things that don't: other people's opinions, the past, the end results. When we understand this separation, we can refocus our energy. Instead of wasting it trying to control what's external, we start investing in what we can truly change. Applying internal control breaks the cycle of insecurity because it puts the power back in our hands. By acting based on what's within our control, even if the outcome isn't perfect, the mind begins to register small things, victories, strengthening confidence. Little by little, negative thoughts lose strength because they no longer find actions that confirm their lies. This is the beginning of transformation, replacing the fear of making mistakes with the willingness to act, and exchanging the search for external approval for the construction of a solid internal conviction, immune to the fluctuations of the outside world. Epictetus, one of the great masters of Stoicism, summarized the entire philosophy in a simple and powerful sentence: Autorosa. Some things depend on us, others don't. At first glance, it may seem obvious, but when applied practically, this idea has the power to completely transform the way we deal with insecurity. Things that depend on us are our actions, choices, attitudes, and how we react to events. Things that don't depend on us include the opinions of others, the past, external circumstances, and even the final outcome of our efforts. The problem is that, more often than not, we waste energy trying to control precisely what is beyond our control, and this fuels insecurity. To neutralize insecurity, the first step is to identify, in any situation, what is within our control and what is not. For example, before an important presentation, you can control how much you prepare, how much you rehearse, and how clear your message is. But you can't control whether everyone will like it, whether someone will criticize it, or whether a technical issue will occur. By focusing on what is controllable, you drastically reduce anxiety because you understand that the rest is beyond your control. The Stoics practiced mental exercises to maintain this clarity. One is premeditation of evils, premeditatio malorum, which involves imagining possible obstacles or difficulties before they occur to prepare yourself emotionally. Another is cognitive distancing, where you observe yourself as a spectator, separating fact from interpretation. Is this a real problem or just my perception of it? And thus avoiding impulsive reactions. There's also the practice of writing daily about events and reactions to identify patterns and train the mind to respond more rationally. Stoic stories show how this principle was applied in extreme situations. Epictetus, for example, lived part of his life as a slave, a condition that was clearly beyond his control. Yet he became one of the most influential philosophers in history, precisely because he didn't waste energy lamenting his condition, but rather focusing on what he could shape, his mind and character. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire amidst wars and plagues, recorded in his Meditations the importance of acting with virtue and clarity, even when external chaos seemed uncontrollable. In modern life, this principle can be applied to any area: work, relationships, studies. If you submit a resume, what depends on you is its quality, and how you present yourself in the interview, whether you are accepted or not, is beyond your control. By internalizing this truth, you free yourself from frustration and excessive fear. Insecurity loses strength because it no longer finds fertile ground to feed on. You begin to live with more ease and courage, knowing that you did the best you could, and that for a Stoic is enough. Courage, for the Stoics, is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. It's mental strength that allows you to face uncertainty without being paralyzed by internal doubts. To strengthen this courage, they developed simple yet powerful practices that train the mind to respond with clarity and firmness, even in the face of pressure. One of the best-known techniques is negative visualization, premeditatio malorum, which involves imagining, in a controlled manner, the worst-case scenarios before they happen. By thinking about what could go wrong, you reduce the emotional impact if they actually happen, and realize that, most of the time, the worst isn't as unbearable as your mind makes it seem. This practice isn't pessimism, but strategic preparation. Another essential tool is a daily reflection journal. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, recorded his actions, thoughts and feelings every day, evaluating where he had acted in accordance with his principles and where he could improve. This habit builds self-awareness, helping you identify patterns of insecurity and replace them with more rational responses. Simply set aside a few minutes at the end of the day to write, "What did I do well today? Where did I let my insecurity get the better of me, and how can I do better tomorrow?" Over time, this practice builds a more grounded and self-confident mind. Furthermore, the Stoics believed in the power of small daily actions to build solid confidence. You don't have to wait for major challenges to develop courage. It's built through simple acts, like starting a conversation with a stranger, expressing an opinion in a meeting, or taking on a task you would normally avoid. Each time you face an uncomfortable situation, even a small one, you send a clear message to yourself: "I can handle this." These accumulated micro-victories create an internal history that weakens insecurity. Another useful practice is rational distancing. When faced with a doubt, or if you're afraid, imagine you're advising a dear friend in the same situation. What words of encouragement would you offer? This shift in perspective helps silence self-criticism and act with more objectivity. By combining negative visualization, daily reflection, and small conscious actions, you strengthen the mental muscles of courage. Over time, insecurity ceases to be an insurmountable barrier and becomes simply an obstacle you know how to overcome. The most important thing is to understand that courage is not a fixed trait, but a trainable skill, in that every step taken, no matter how small, is a building block in the construction of unshakable self-confidence. This is how Stoicism transforms the mind, not through sudden revelations, but through the daily cultivation of practices that, combined, create an inner fortitude capable of weathering any storm. It's time to turn theory into action. This is the practical three-step method to eliminate insecurity from your mind and build confidence that is unshakable by external circumstances. It's simple, straightforward, and can be applied to any area of life, from work to personal relationships. But the secret is consistency. Let's break down each step. Step 1. Recognize and name insecurity the moment it arises. Most people are caught off guard by insecurity because they don't realize it's starting to creep in. This happens because it manifests itself thought of "what if I mess up?" Butterflies in the stomach, a desire to postpone something important. The first step is to stop and identify what I'm feeling is insecurity. Naming the feeling is like turning on a light in a dark room. You see what's happening and stop acting on autopilot. For example, before presenting a project, you notice your mind creating failure scenarios. By recognizing this is just my insecurity talking, you create space to choose how to react. Step 2. Apply the Stoic filter. Is this up to me? Once you recognize insecurity, ask the key question inspired by Epictetus: is this within my control? If the answer is no, you already know that wasting energy on it will only fuel fear. If the answer is yes, focus on actions you can take now. For example, if you're nervous about a client's opinion, remember that you can't control what they'll think, but you can control the clarity of your presentation, your preparation, and your posture. This filter nips in the bud many of the worries that drain your confidence. Step 3. Act even in the face of doubt, using micro-victories to reinforce confidence. Insecurity fades when you repeatedly prove to yourself that you can act even when afraid. This is where micro-victories come in: small, concrete steps that challenge fear and build a track record of competence. If you struggle with public speaking, don't wait for a packed auditorium. Start by sharing ideas in a small meeting, or recording a short video to practice. Each time you act despite doubt, you send a powerful message to your brain. I can do it. This repetition is what solidifies self-confidence. Practical examples of application. Presentation at work. Recognize nervousness. Apply the Stoic filter by focusing on your preparation, and perform even when butterflies are in your stomach. Difficult conversations. Identify insecurity. Ask if the other person's reaction depends on you, and speak clearly and objectively. Quick decision-making. Notice hesitation. Assess where the key factors are within your control, and act to avoid losing the moment. How to measure results and identify progress. Keep a weekly log with 3 questions. When did I face insecurity, and did I apply the Stoic filter correctly? And what micro-victories did I achieve? As you review your notes, you'll see patterns of improvement and realize that situations that previously led to paralysis are now handled naturally. Monitoring isn't meant to judge yourself, but to observe your concrete progress by following this method. Insecurity ceases to be an invisible enemy and becomes a clear sign that it's time to apply your training. And, with practice, you'll realize that you don't need to wait until you feel 100% confident to act. Confidence comes after action, not before. Insecurity often stems from a fear of other people's judgment, a constant worry about what others think, say, or expect of us. This anxiety about external opinions can be paralyzing, creating a cycle of self-criticism and doubt that undermines confidence. Stoic wisdom offers a fundamental tool for dealing with this issue: the principle of control. It reminds us that we can't control what others think or say, but we do have complete control over how we react to it. So, learn to focus on what depends on us, and leave aside what we can't control is the first step to preventing destructive criticism from influencing our minds. Not all criticism is bad. It's essential to develop the ability to distinguish between constructive criticism, which provides valuable feedback for our growth, and criticism that is meant only to tear us down, often motivated by envy, ignorance, or malice. To do this, a useful technique is to analyze the source of the criticism and the intention behind it. Ask yourself, does this criticism come from someone who understands the subject? Is it intended to help or simply to belittle? This filter helps you absorb only what is useful, keeping the rest out of your mind. Strengthening your inner value is the foundation for reducing external opinions' power over you. This means building solid self-confidence, grounded in the knowledge of your values, your achievements, and your ability to learn from your mistakes. The more aware you are of your worth, the less vulnerable you will be to negative criticism. This internal construction is gradual and requires daily practice, but it creates a mental shield that protects against external attacks. Great Stoics and historical leaders are living examples of this principle. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, faced constant criticism, wars, and betrayals, but maintained his serenity by focusing on his duty and values. Seneca, persecuted and slandered, followed his philosophy without being shaken by the opinions of others. Epictetus, a freed slave, lived amid adversity, but never allowed criticism or judgment to undermine his inner peace. These examples show that, regardless of the situation, maintaining a focus on internal control and personal worth is key to overcoming the fear of judgment and building a mind free from insecurity. Building a Stoic mindset in daily life is essential to cultivating mental resilience and strengthening self. Stoic philosophy is not something learned only from books, but a continuous practice that must be incorporated into every moment of life. Small daily habits can make all the difference, creating fertile ground for courage and tranquility to flourish, even amidst difficulties and insecurities. A powerful practice is morning meditation, which can be done as soon as you wake up, taking a few minutes to reflect on the day ahead, anticipating potential challenges and preparing your mind to face them with serenity, is a mental preparation exercise called premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization, by the Stoics. This preparation isn't pessimistic, but rather a way to strengthen your mind so that adversity doesn't catch you off guard. Another valuable habit is keeping a gratitude and self-assessment journal at the end of the day, taking a moment to record what you're grateful for and to evaluate your actions in the situations you've experienced helps build awareness and develop emotional discipline. Simple questions like, what did I do well today? Where did I let insecurity get the better of me? And how can I act better tomorrow? Guide the mind to learn from mistakes without judgment. Promoting constant growth, focusing on the present, is another essential Stoic principle for reducing anxiety and insecurity. Often, the mind gets lost in worries about the future or regrets about the past, which creates unnecessary mental strain. Stoicism teaches us that the only real moment is now, and that our energy should be invested in what we can do in the present. Practicing mindfulness, paying full attention to daily tasks, conversations, and emotions, helps anchor the mind in the present and lessen the impact of anxious or insecure thoughts. Detachment from external expectations is another key point. Insecurity often arises when we become overly attached to what others expect of us, creating constant pressure to meet their standards. Stoicism encourages radical acceptance of what we cannot change, be it the opinions of others, events beyond our control, or adverse situations. By accepting these realities without resistance, we free up mental energy that was previously spent on anxiety and frustration and begin to focus on what truly matters, our response and our actions. Finally, Stoicism transforms failures into continuous learning experiences. Instead of viewing mistakes as personal defeats that reinforce insecurity, the philosophy teaches us to see them as valuable opportunities for growth. Each failure is a chance to better understand yourself, adjust your course and strengthen your mind against the fear of trying again. This perspective completely changes your relationship with insecurity, which ceases to be an insurmountable obstacle and becomes an invitation to develop resilience and wisdom. Incorporating these habits into your daily routine creates a solid foundation for facing challenges with greater balance and self-confidence. Stoic mentality isn't born overnight, but it grows through a daily commitment to cultivating inner control, focus on the present, and conscious acceptance. This way, you build a mind prepared to act courageously, even when insecurity tries to knock on the door. Insecurity is one of the main causes of procrastination because the fear of failure paralyzes action. When you feel insecure about your abilities, or fear judgment, your mind creates justifications to postpone important tasks. This delay, in turn, reinforces feelings of inability and anxiety, forming a cycle that is difficult to break. Procrastination, then, is not just laziness, but a defense mechanism against the emotional discomfort caused by insecurity. Stoicism offers effective strategies for breaking this vicious cycle. One of them is task fragmentation, dividing a large challenge into small, manageable actions that can be completed immediately. This approach reduces feelings of overwhelm and makes it easier to get started. For example, if you have to write a report, start by defining just the title or writing the first paragraph, instead of trying to solve everything at once. By taking action on what's within your control, even in small steps, you gain momentum and pave the way for continued progress. The concept of acting small is crucial here. The idea is that you don't need to wait for perfect confidence to begin. On the contrary, confidence arises with action. Each small victory, no matter how small, is concrete proof to your mind that you are capable. This technique works because mental inertia is broken by initiative, and the brain begins to register progressive success, weakening the power of insecurity. Another important aspect to combat is excessive self-demand, which often fuels procrastination. The belief that everything needs to be perfect before beginning creates a blockage. Stoicism teaches that striving for perfection is a trap, because the ideal is not to avoid mistakes, but to act with integrity and learn from them. By accepting that failure is part of the process, you allow yourself to move forward, even if the initial result isn't flawless. Don't in the workplace. This can be applied when starting projects or presentations that you fear you won't fully master. In studies, breaking down the task of reviewing a chapter into short sessions can prevent blockage caused by the sheer volume of content. In personal projects, such as learning a new language or playing an instrument, starting by practicing 5 minutes a day is already a significant step forward. By applying these strategies, you'll notice that procrastination decreases and insecurity fades, as constant action reprograms the mind. The key is to acknowledge fear, break it down into manageable parts, and above all, take action, even in small steps, to build real and lasting confidence. Self-confidence isn't a fixed state, but a continuous development that requires care and daily dedication. It doesn't emerge from nowhere and doesn't remain stable without maintenance. Like any skill, it needs to be cultivated, especially so that you can face new challenges without retreating from the doubts or insecurity that always arise at some point. Keeping your mind trained in this resilience is essential for confidence to become increasingly natural and resilient to life's ups and downs. One of the pillars of this is comprehensive self-care, physical, mental, and emotional. A healthy body directly influences mental clarity and emotional stability. Regular exercise releases endorphins that improve mood and disposition. A balanced diet provides the energy the brain needs to function well, and practices such as quality sleep and leisure time help restore the mind and reduce stress. Without these practices, the mind becomes vulnerable to negative thoughts and insecurity, making it difficult to strengthen self-confidence on a mental and emotional level. Positive reinforcement and self-praise are powerful tools that many overlook. Celebrating your achievements, even small ones, strengthens self-esteem and creates a virtuous cycle of motivation. Instead of focusing only on what needs improvement, take time to recognize what you did right and how you've evolved. This isn't vanity, but legitimate recognition of your effort and progress. Fundamental elements for solidifying self-confidence over time. The history of the Stoics offers inspiration for this journey of maintaining confidence. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, personal losses, and the enormous responsibility of ruling an empire. Yet he wrote about the importance of maintaining a firm, centered, and serene mind. Seneca and Epictetus, despite adversity, reinforced the idea that true strength comes from inner control and daily discipline. These figures were not superhuman, but people who chose day after day. Train your mind to endure and act virtuously, even when everything seems difficult. Maintaining self-confidence in the long term means accepting that there will be ups and downs, but that progress comes through constant effort. Being aware of signs of insecurity, applying the Stoic principles you've learned, and taking care of yourself holistically creates an internal environment conducive to confidence, not only returning but growing with each challenge you face. This is the foundation for living with more courage, clarity, and authenticity, regardless of what the external world presents. We've reached the end of this journey to eliminate insecurity from your mind, but the true beginning lies now, in your decision to act. We've seen that insecurity arises from distorted interpretations of reality, fueled by fear of judgment and the pursuit of perfection. Stoic philosophy taught us to focus on what is within our control, to recognize insecurity the moment it arises, and to act even in the face of doubt, building solid confidence with small daily victories. Remember, insecurity, who only lives in the minds of those who don't act. Transformation happens when you decide to face your fear and take the first step, no matter how small. Don't wait for perfect confidence. It comes from constant practice and the courage to keep going. So, my invitation is simple. Apply the method we've shown you today. Acknowledge your insecurity, filter what depends on you, and start taking action. To further strengthen this journey, be sure to watch the complimentary video we prepared, where we delve into practical techniques for keeping your mind steady in any situation. I've also provided additional material with exercises and reflections to help you progress. The link is in the description. Make this the first step towards a mind free of insecurity and full of courage.